All right, hello, welcome. Sunday, back at it again as always. Love to see it. All right, got Angry Links here today. Hello, welcome to the show.
Good. Thanks for having me.
All right, hopefully all the audio is good and we can begin the conversation on speedrunning because, you know, the best topic out there, I think. So that's what the show's all about. So that's what we're here to do. So I think the obvious place to start, as always, is when you got started yourself.
Like my official start was back in like late 2015. Like the thing that got me into speedrunning a long time ago, or the concept of it, was that like task video of Super Mario Bros. 3 that came out in like the
Oh, the
mid
famous one.
2000s. Yeah,
Yeah,
and so
that one.
I kind of started dorking around with it then, but not like really getting into it. So I started speedrunning Ninja Gaiden and Contra in like late 2015, and just like recording runs on VHS tapes because I didn't have a computer.
The
So
classic. Yeah.
yeah, right. So a little too far, you know, technology was far more advanced at that point, but I was still living in the past big time. So, but yeah, that's kind of how it got started for me. I think I was still also referencing SDA. I did not know about speedrun.com, and I didn't really get on Twitch, so I was just kind of learning from really dated runs and dated strategies and stuff. So that's kind of where I kicked off for me before I started actually streaming in 2016.
Yeah. I think 2015 speedrun.com was either new or like I don't know exactly when it started, so
Yeah, me
it's
either.
not unreasonable to not have discovered it immediately at that point.
Right.
But it is funny to like be at right on that edge and
Mhm.
because SDA's been around forever. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of outdated information
Oh
by
yeah.
that point. So
Yeah.
it's a cool start though. Really
Mhm.
the classic experience.
Yeah. And I did submit those VHS tape runs I had to also. I think I at one point my Ninja Gaiden run was submitted, and I think it was like a 1230 something or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but that was a lot, however many years ago. So
I mean, that's pretty good run for the time, I think,
yeah,
right?
yeah, pretty decent.
And I'm not. I've watched plenty of Ninja Gaiden, but it's not like I'm super knowledgeable. So I don't know. I know like the top level runs are insane, but
Yeah.
I don't know how that translates to like only a minute slower. Like it doesn't sound like a lot, but Mario
Yeah.
One, that's the whole world. So
Yeah,
it's hard
that's
to get that.
the frame of reference
Yeah, frame of
versus, yeah, it's a
reference.
little oranges and apples, I suppose. So
Yeah, but yeah, it sounds like a good start. I mean,
mm,
Ninja Gaiden's a good game.
yeah,
Really showcases the skills starting off, I guess, given that game's just
right,
hard in general, let alone in 12 minutes.
right. It's like a high execution speed run. It's nonstop action and nonstop challenging strategies. So yeah, it's. I think the reason I got into that one is because I just thought the damage boosting looked cool. So that was like, oh, like someone's jumping off a bird and getting hit on purpose and like getting knocked up to a ledge. Like that whole concept was foreign to me, and I was like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. So
Bat Boost started it all.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, I guess just we can keep going down the timeline.
Sure. So I think at around that time, like in 2016, I kind of started streaming attempts, and by that point, I had like kind of moved on to Ninja Gaiden 2, and so I streamed that for like a couple months there, and I think I ended with like a 1039 in that game before I moved on. That's my timeline's a little hazy, but I also started running The Little Mermaid around that same time, and
A natural progression.
yeah, it's like, oh, there's this really short, easy to learn game. Yeah, why not? Like, I'm just gonna take it on. And so after I stopped doing the Ninja Gaiden 2 grind, I was pretty happy with my 1039. And I got kind of tired of how challenging that speed run was. And I found Little Mermaid, and I was like, this is gonna be just kind of like an easy way to do something new and not have to struggle too much. But thing about that game is it's actually like it's like playing a slot machine. It's like every boss fight is pretty rough on the RNG for the most part in that game. So it turned out to be more challenging than I thought. But I did end up getting the record in that game when I started running it at the time. And then like took it down even lower to like 649 or something, and then I think I'm sixth place on the leaderboard now. Everybody's like smashed that record at this point. But that was the first time I ever got a record in an NES or any video game really for a speed run. So I was pretty hyped about that.
It's a good first run. Nothing like The
Yeah,
Little Mermaid. So
yeah, exactly. I remember I was telling certain people that were friends of mine, and they're like, "What are you talking? What do you mean? Like you played The Little Mermaid? Like why that game?" And I was like, "Oh, it's just fun." But
who needs a
and
reason?
then yeah, and then around that time, I played a couple other random games like Jackal and Trojan on the NES. Some just like other short games, but then I started getting focused on the first Contra again, and I came back to that and started really getting into that run, and that one kind of became my obsession versus all the rest, and I started getting like close to sub 10 and like 20, I think it was like sometime in 2016 actually, or maybe I can't remember the exact timeline, maybe 2017, but yeah, so Contra really kind of took hold of me, and that became my main game. I would still run other random games from time to time to take a break, but that became my focal point and really just kind of stayed that way all the way through my streaming. Like I haven't streamed in months at this point, but even when I came back, I was like back to Contra again and a little bit of Super C. So something about that game really grabbed a hold of me. I think it's because it's got that spread rhythm strategy. If you're familiar with that at all, it's like that in the base stages, you have to like tap the button precisely and quickly. And something about that really intrigued me, and I just didn't want to like move on. So became
Yeah,
completely obsessed with that game.
it's a really hard balance of rhythm and like speed. Like you
Right.
need like really fast smashing, but it also has to
Hmm.
be like timed, and
Right.
it's just hard.
Yeah, it's precision, and it's technically like frame perfect. There's like a one frame where the bullets hit the wall or an enemy, and if one disappears on that exact next frame, you have to press the B button to activate the next round of bullets. And so you're continuously doing these frame perfect presses that line up with when the bullets are disappearing to condense the stream. And it's like there's no way you can actually visually understand that. It's like it's actually just feeling. It's like you have to get a feel for it. It's the only way I can explain it. So if there's anybody that's like trying to play Contra as a speedrun and struggling with that, it's just going to be a struggle. There's
Yeah.
no good way of figuring it out other than just like trial and erroring different tempos and mashing speeds until you're starting to activate it and see that bullet line condense into a streamline of bullets. So it's weird.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the more difficult strategies that I've heard in speedrunning is getting
Yeah.
that because there's mashing, there's timing, but combining the two, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
those two things were hard enough on their own.
Right.
So let's just make it ultra hard to
Yeah.
get through things quickly.
Yeah, it's like kind of like no other strat I've heard of in a game. So I mean,
Yeah, I was
like
gonna say
mashing's the thing, but
it's
to
super
do it like
unique.
that, it's very unique. So I think that's the allure of the Contra speedrun. I think for a lot of people, or maybe the detriment to some are like, I don't want to mess with whatever that is. So
Well, it sounds like from the time you started, you got good fairly quickly.
yeah, I feel like being a drummer as was crucial to that. I feel like anybody that's a musician that has a sense of rhythm is going to have a great time with the Contra speedrun. I would really love to see someone like Retro Runner try it out because he can just shred on the guitar, and he's obviously amazing at mashing in Ninja Gaiden. So I think he could actually crush Contra if he played it. But yeah, I think that rhythmic sensibility is gave me a big edge and made me learn it faster than some people maybe would have. Although King Koopa, the guy that has the record now, he picked it up probably faster than I did, I would say, and passed me pretty quickly when he got serious about running the game. So really impressive.
Yeah, well, um, so it sounds like you stuck with that game pretty early on.
Mhm.
2017, I think you said.
Yeah, 2017 is when I set the record. Actually, when I
Oh,
managed to eke out DK's time by a couple frames, and and then I just stuck with it all the way through 2020. Like I basically once I set the record in 2017, it was like sometime in July of that year I set the record, and then I just kept improving it as the years were going on. Like I would get a time that I liked, play another game for a while, and then come back to it and then grind it and beat the record. And I just kept lowering it. And then Dexter started developing that double glitch kill. That didn't exist when I first got the record. And so then it was way easier to start bringing the record down because then you had the 4 second, well, like not 4 second, but more like a 2.5 second time save on that boss fight. And so that really progressed how often I was improving the runs. And then that also brought more people to the game and there started becoming more competition. And then I'm trying to think about how it all went down. Yeah, it's yeah, that double glitch was big. Oh, and then like people started figuring out new waterfall routes as well, of course, like more skips. And so I just every time I got a time where I was like, oh, this one's pretty good for the current strats, someone would get something new, and I'd have to like come back to it and rehash it and try to beat that time. And I even though like right to the very end, even when I got like a after the summoning salt video came out, IKU, he's a Chinese runner who's amazing at Contra, figured out the four ledge skip route, and then I beat the record the next day, and then also beat it again a week later. And I was really pretty happy with that time, but I still thought I could bring it down. But then I got burnt out trying, and it just like laid it to rest. I was like, you know what? I don't think I need to try to improve this. It's too much work. It's too much like stress. You can like hurt your arm doing all the spread rhythm and mashing. And then, so yeah, I just kind of quit after 2020 for a while. I took like a long hiatus from speedrunning, and then I don't remember exactly when I actually started doing runs again. Maybe it was like late 2021 or 2020, early 2022 or something. Because I saw how good King Koopa was getting. I was like, well, maybe I should like try to compete with him a little bit, but I couldn't keep up. He's too good.
Mm-hmm. All right. So when you first got the record in Contra, what was the time? Do you remember?
I believe it was 953.800,
Ooh, to the
and
decimal.
I think DK had 953.83.
Okay, so like
So
actually 2 frames.
yeah, literally 2 frames. So because yeah, like PJ was in the chat and everyone kept saying I beat it by a frame, and he was like, actually, it's two. He's like correcting people like, no, it's 2 frame record. But yeah, it was very very minute, but it was one of those records that like people say that oh this one's not beatable, which is never true, it turns out. But yeah,
Mhm.
so I was really stoked that I did it. I'm still really proud of that achievement, especially because I used all the same strategies that DK used and managed to eke him out just barely. Although he's much better at the spread rhythm strategy than I am. But yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, it's
And then
crazy thinking that was the 2017 time, and it's not. Well, again, I don't know the exact frame of reference, but it's only like what 6 seconds faster
yeah,
today.
it's
So
947 now, 947.5 or 6 or something like that that King Koopa has. So and then DK is still third place. I mean, with his
wow,
953 with dated strats that he set 8 years ago or something.
yeah,
So
not a lot of
it's
top level in that game that you see. I guess only a
yeah,
couple people.
yeah. Only yeah. I don't know what it's. There's a couple of guys that could definitely step it up and get to that point. Like they have the skill and they have the ability. I just don't think they care as much about Contra. Like a lot of the Russian speedrunners, like Stans and X-Ray, I think hurt his elbow, which I think
Hmm.
he probably would have closed in on the record or took it at some point. And Pikachu as well. All of them, if they wanted to, they could become one of the top spots for sure and give King Koopa some real competition. But
Hmm.
it seems like people always kind of run away from Contra after a while because it's just so frustrating on the spread rhythm aspect.
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds like that's a big turnoff for a lot of people
Mm,
to like do it at a top level, I guess, which is why you
yeah,
don't see a lot of it because again, it's just so ridiculously hard.
yeah, and the game's not very kind either. It's like one hit kills. You have global timers. You have all these factors. It's like, oh well, I have a great run going. I got the rhythm on base one and base two. My pace is good. I got the glitch kill on the boss, and then the game could just be like, well, it doesn't matter. I don't care. Like, I'm going to throw this guy at you at this spot that means you're dead no matter what, or I'm going to give you a bad pattern on the next boss fight or whatever. Like, there's so many factors after that, too. And it's yeah, it can all drain on you. So like with anything where you're speedrunning and going hard, I'm sure, what, you have a 455 in SMB1, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm sure you went pretty mad trying to get that time at points.
Oh, I get mad at everything, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, that in particular is not easy.
No, I can
Not
only imagine.
not
That's crazy.
not
That's
easy.
a being top 10 in that game is wild to me. So kudos.
Oh yeah. So going back to I guess 2017, so
Mhm.
you get the record. Is the next one that you get like where'd the improvement come from and how much
Um,
was
I
it?
I think around that time is when like Dexter had been kind of ironing out the details on that double glitch kill on the base 2 boss.
Mhm.
And so the improvement ended up being a pretty good sized one within like I think I like got another 953 that was like faster, like a low 953, and then pretty shortly after I got a couple 952s. But with how much that strategy saved, I was like, well, these runs aren't like really as good as the 953 I had. I was like, it's faster, but like I could clean it up. So I think that was probably 2018 where I started bringing it down lower. I don't. I brought it down to like 950 flat at one point, and that's I don't remember what year that was, but that's kind of like without all the new waterfall routes and that double glitch kill, that time was actually like on par with the 953. I felt like it was like, okay,
Mm.
this is like a good time that matches the skill and kind of perfection I was looking for in that first record. And so I felt really good about that one. And then around that time is when that's when the waterfall skips started getting more discovered. And so it started changing again. And it was like, well, I got to go for sub 950 basically at this point. So
Yeah.
it just never ends.
Of course not.
Yeah.
So what is this glitch that saves, what was it, 3 seconds it sounds like?
Yeah, so there's like a frame perfect glitch on the boss. Mr. K has a really great explanation video of it on the SDA website, like a contra glitches and mechanics page. But essentially, you have a frame perfect moment. So the way the boss works is there's two sets of heads, and they're on the left and the right side of the screen, and then they also like separate to where there's like four heads. And when they separate, you can't hit them; they have no detectable hitbox. But if you stand dead center of the boss fight and you have to kill these three things that like kind of unlock the boss. And based on your shooting on them, the last one explodes, you land and the explosion disappears. 17 frames after that explosion disappears, you press B and your bullets will hit the heads on the exact frame that they separate. And what it
Hmm.
does is it activates their hitbox while they're separated, but you have to keep hitting them with bullets or it will deactivate after a certain amount of frames. So you have to move slightly right and keep mashing and then also like jump and kind of like time your bullets to where they just really obliterate this boss super quick because the boss fights like that. It just happens so quick.
Hmm.
You wouldn't know that it's so technical. But yeah, it's this 17 frame wait for a B press and then moving over, mashing and jumping and keeping that hitbox alive long enough to kill the boss. So
Yeah, it
um,
definitely sounds complex.
it's awful. It's like one of the worst and coolest strats at the same time ever. Like it's like so impressive to pull off in a run because it's frame perfect tricks are always impressive, but to have it's the only visual QB 17 seconds in delay is not helpful. It's like it's awful.
Yeah, it doesn't
So
sound like there's a good cue for that. You kind of just have to get the timing down, and
exactly.
17 frames is very like specific.
Yes, it's
So it's
very
like,
weird. Yeah, and I think that's the right number if I remember correctly. It could be like somewhere between 16 and 18. I'm pretty sure someone said 17 in the Discord when I was talking to them about it. There is like a little lesser version. There's kind of the old way that DK does it, where you actually just stand under one set of heads and mash your hardest and jump and just like glitch the one set and kill it, and then move left. And when they come back together, you kill the other head. So essentially, that's the difference. That's why it's saves like 2.5 seconds. If you do the one-sided glitch kill versus the two-sided, you don't have to wait for the heads to come back together on that second animation. So you're not waiting to kill the second set of heads. And so that's why it's like 2.5 seconds faster than the old version that DK did, which used to be like, well, okay, this is the fastest version possible. Like, there's no way to do both, but then Dexter somehow figured it out. So
Oh, that's really cool. It's
yeah,
unfortunate it sucks, but
yeah, yeah. I mean,
cool.
honestly, it feels amazing when you hit it in a run. It like makes you feel like a badass. So it's kind of cool in a way, but yeah, it's just frustrating. So
Yeah, how deep into the run is that?
it's the fourth stage in the game. The speed run's 8 stages, so it's literally like just about halfway through the run, like
Okay.
right at the halfway point. So
Was that
it's
base
it you
2?
yeah, base
Yeah.
two. So
Okay.
you got jungle base one, waterfall base two,
Hmm.
and then right at that last boss there. And yeah, if you hit it on a good pace, it's hard not to have nerves the rest of the run. It's
I
like
bet.
because it's pivotal point. So
Yeah, it's that sounds quite insane. And then
yeah,
you've already played, 2 base levels, which is the whole rhythm
yeah,
spreading and all that. So it's like,
right.
ugh. And then I'm sure it doesn't get that much easier after that either. So,
No, only in the sense that like you just have to do some pretty straightforward platforming at parts, but then there are some really tricky moments. But if you play the game enough, that a lot of it feels safer than it did at first. There's just like trolley elements in the game. There's like those what TMR refers to as the mochila guys, or the guys with backpacks on, and they're just like once you get to Snowfield, it's like everybody calls it Troll Field because those guys just come out at random times and random patterns. But if you play the game too much and you're obsessive about it like I am, you start to learn mitigation tactics and like where to shoot and when, just in case that guy does show up or something. But there are a small handful of them that no matter what you do, they end your run. It's just like it's the cursed Mochila guy that shows up and it's like, oh,
mhm.
I'm on the greatest pace ever. I hit the double glitch, and then guy runs out, shoots you, and you can't do anything about it because it's just circumstantial. So
Wow.
brutal.
So not only is the execution crazy, but then there's also a little bit of RNG sprinkled in
Yeah,
just to make it that much more painful.
yeah. I mean, it's like technically not RNG, I guess, but for the sake of like simplicity, I would call it RNG because with Contra, it's all input based. So
Oh, okay.
your directional and your B and your A inputs are all going to affect these patterns. But you know, nobody's a robot. Nobody plays frame perfectly. So
Hmm.
it's
It's
like human
essentially
RNG.
RNG,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're creating randomness based off of your inconsistencies, which are going to pop up no matter what you do. So
Hmm. Of course. So, do you have like an idea of what the odds are to get through the Snowfield stage?
I have no clue, but I will say that once my attempt counter started getting above 10,000 on that game, I my success rate was very high. Like
Okay.
once you learn where to shoot and how to move, you get through pretty consistently. And Snowfield's not as much of a problem. And then Energy Zone and Hangar really are kind of the worst stages in the run on a good pace. Like arguably base two is the worst because the rhythm's so hard in the boss kill. But once you're past that point and your heart rate's up, Energy Zone and Hangar are stressful ones. So um, you got the flame patterns and the claw patterns, and those guys are coming out at different times. The backpack guys, so
Mm.
it can really stress you out.
Yeah, but is it still like mostly execution? Like if once you get
Yeah,
there,
it
you can
is.
at least just get through it.
Yeah, and there's like the global timer elements, like I was talking about. Those are the stages that have the global timers, and it's whenever the flames shoot and when the claws drop. But that global timer starts at power on. It's like
Mm.
not level specific, so it's cycling through every 1.5 or 1.6 seconds or something like that. The flames like shoot bottom, middle, top, and so if you kind of know a little bit about your pace. Like usually I can kill the base two boss and come out of the stage and my split there will tell me, okay, I'm gonna have this flame pattern. Like mentally I'll just know this is gonna be bottom flame, my run's dead, or this is gonna be middle flame, my run has a chance. And yeah, like once you play enough, you start to catch on to that too. And also King Koopa has made a spreadsheet now of flame patterns and like what to expect based on paces. So that's really helpful for new runners. So it's cool that he's doing that. It's a lot of work. He's been starting at the better times and the times he's hoping to achieve, which were the times I was hoping to achieve as well. But I've kind of given up at this point for the time being. So, but he's working his way down to like slower times, and it's pretty wild. But and I imagine someone could even make a tool if they wanted to that would show the flames in the video, you know. But I don't know if people would think that was a little bit much or not. So
Hmm. So when you say it, the cycle start on power on, is it like legitimately flipping the console on or like pushing start on the?
yeah, it's literally turning the console on. So
Okay.
what we do a lot of the time to kind of get it, the only way you can know your pace, I guess I should explain that part, is you have to mash start while you're resetting. So if
Hmm.
you like, then you'll get a consistent feel for like what's going on and know based off of your pace. So that's how that chart works too. It's like if you're resetting and mashing start, then you'll understand your pace and you'll know what flame pattern you're getting. Because otherwise, it's got to have like a set starting point. Otherwise, it won't make any sense because it can be hugely variant. So
Mm. Because I was gonna say, it sounds like you could delay the start press to get different cycles.
yeah, and that is also a strategy you could try to utilize depending on what your PB run was like. You could say, okay, well, since I mashed start in my PB and got this, if I delayed, then I could like be on a certain pace that's ideal and get a good global timer. But with a game like Contra, it's a little more complicated than that because so many random things can happen. So
Hmm.
I don't know how feasible or helpful that actually is at times, but it is something I was thinking about for a while when I was trying to break some of my records back in the day. I was like trying to delay the start a little bit and think like, well, consistently I get on this pace more often, and I could get a good global timer out of it. It was kind of like a, you know, a trade off in a way. Like, oh well, if I'm not playing as well, I could still at least have a chance. Versus, well, if I play my best, then it's not going to be the good global timer. So it's like, what do you do? But
Yeah, very complicated.
yeah, and then the global timer also is the clause on the hanger too. So depending on if you get a really good global timer in energy zone, you might not get the best global timer on hanger, and then the claws make you stop because they'll kill you. You have to hesitate before you run, and there's
Hmm.
like multiple sets of them, and you have to stop at the first one with certain patterns. That's like the worst pattern because you have to stop every single set of claws for a moment for like a couple frames or whatever. And yeah, so it's just complicated. I think if somebody really wanted to, they could like dive into this and break it down and figure out all the ideal scenarios. But I don't think anyone's put in the work for Contra like that yet because there's so much to just gain just from being good at spread rhythm that it's kind of hard to care about the rest. If you don't have that element, then you're not going to like beat anybody else's time anyway. So
Hmm. Yeah, so the like timers between those two stages aren't like consistent with each other, so that's a whole
yeah,
other.
they like they don't sync up ideally, I guess is the way to
Yeah.
put it. Yeah, so
Wow.
that's another factor.
So many factors.
Yeah, it's a very weird one.
Yeah, are there any other unique things to that make the run hard?
I'm trying to think. I feel like I don't know what the deal with it is, but on the aliens layer stage, it seems like it really comes down to mashing speed because you're really like actually it's like a victory lap. Like everybody that runs Contra, it, once you're like more seasoned at the game, you're not stressed about aliens layer. You're just like glad you got out of hanger and you're alive. And if you're on a good pace, you're like, oh, this run's going down. Because as long as you don't like lose a frame of movement, nothing changes. That's the one stage where everything's always the same. So you know what to do. But I feel like there's some weirdness with the alien head and the heart with like how fast it dies sometimes.
Hmm.
And you could argue that it's strictly from a mashing speed kind of perspective, but there's been times where I feel like I've busted my ass, mashed my fucking fastest and my hardest, and like didn't get as good a time on that split. So I feel like
Hmm.
there's something weird going on there, but I don't know what it is. And I'm not good at digging into code or figuring things out. So,
Yeah,
but that's just a suspicion more than like a verified thing. So I don't know.
fair enough.
Yeah.
So everything culminated in a 950, it sounds like, and then
Yeah.
waterfall tech, the third stage in the game.
Yes. And then I key you figured out because I think if I remember correctly, the summoning salt video when it came out, 950 was the record.
Hmm.
And that very night after it premiered, IQ messaged me and said, "Hey, do you still speedrun Contra?" I have new waterfall strategies, and I was like, oh yeah, I definitely do. And he's like sent me this 4 skip route, and I immediately sent it to Salt. I was like, you're not gonna believe this shit. It's like there's just this new faster waterfall strategy the day you release this video. It's like, what are the odds on this timing? And then I booted up the next day because like obviously, once you're in one of his videos, you're gonna get new viewership and there's new tech. I was like, this is like a perfect storm of cool ingredients to just have like a fun stream. So I booted it up, and with that 4 skip route, you save almost 2 seconds on the waterfall with it, probably like a
Wow.
1.6, and I got a record that day. I just got like a slightly faster 950, I think, and then kept streaming for like a week and got a 948.65. Uh, so like that strat was huge. It was
Yeah.
a
Wow.
game changer, and the 948 was a very good run. Like I'm still pretty proud of it. Obviously, that was the last record I had set, and that's the one that King Koopa beat. But I still feel like it was a very good run and a very hard run to beat, and I think I set a really good standard. Um, and I did have a little bit of bad luck on one stage where the game lagged and kind of slowed me down. So
Hmm.
it's possible I could have been a faster 948, but circumstantially it is what it is. So and then even after Koopa came back and beat my time, I came back and started grinding a little bit and improved my time by zero point 0.5 seconds and also improved it a little bit. I think I got a 948.183 and a 948.15.
Hmm.
So like a good 0.5 second improvement. And then King Koopa improved his time by a little bit more after that. And so he kind of kept the same decimal gap ahead of me in the time. So I think he's still like a half a second ahead of me.
Yeah.
And he's been on pace to, both of us have been on pace to get 946. And I think he's been on pace to get 945 as well, which I've not been on pace
Whoa.
for. So it'll come down eventually, but he's basically, I know from experience, it's like banging your head into a brick wall and hoping you start to break some bricks. It's rough. So I don't know. I hope he can stick with it and get the times I couldn't achieve because I would love to see it.
So these new waterfall strats, like, what about them saves time?
so the way it works is the game has like a value, like a number that represents how high the arc of your jump is. And it's like a hidden value that you can't see. And movements to the right affect it and change the number. And movements to the left don't. And movements straight up also don't really have much influence on this number. So Zallard was the one that first figured out how to make ledge skips work. And Mr. K made a video about it, about this value, and Zallard was like, okay, well, if jumps to the right affected, as long as I jump fully to the right on all my right jumps, I can start like scripting this out and figuring out how to get this value to make me skip a ledge. So what the value does is if it's like in a certain range, I don't remember the numbers on this, I don't remember the specifics, but instead of like landing on like sometimes you'll jump in Contra and there's like a ledge right here and you'll jump and kind of pass over it, but then you'll fall back through it.
Hmm.
Well, it causes you to land right on top of that taller ledge you're not supposed to be able to land on. And so they just call them ledge skips. And Zallard's route had 2 ledge skips, and you had to jump over the flame on the bridge to be able to do it, which is really like a small, like I think it's like a 2 frame window to jump over the flame on the bridge.
Mm.
So that was pretty tough. And then somebody else developed like a safer 2 skip route, and then Dexter found a 3 skip route. But so, oh, here's a weird quirky thing about the game actually. Waterfall stages, that jump value can also be changed based on where you land. The
Oh.
very edge, the very first pixel of any ledge in that game, on that stage, rather, if you land on the first pixel, it resets the value to 0. So whatever values you had in your scripted jumps to get a skip, if you land on the edge, you'll erase them and you won't get your skips. So Dexter developed a route where you purposely land on an edge pixel perfect landing on one ledge to get a 3rd skip.
Hmm.
And I tried messing with that and it was not fun.
No,
So
that
I gave
doesn't.
up on the 3 skip route. um, and it wasn't until like Kiyu came along that a 4 skip was developed. And then now, actually, there's a 5 skip route, and that's
Oh,
how I was able to improve my time again to a faster 9:48, and that's how Koopa was able to get a 9:47. JD Silva is a speedrunner, and also he's really good at figuring out strats, and I think he's the one that kind of broke Bionic Commando as well, so PJ could get those crazy times in that game. Figured out some skips, but he's the one that figured out the 5 ledge skip route. He figured out variations of it too, where you can do different patterns and get different types of skips. He even figured out a 6 skip route, but
mm,
it doesn't save any time because there's a moving platform cycle, and if you're doing that route, the platform's out of sync, and so the 6 skip just really replaces the time you lost on the bad cycle. So, but essentially, you can use that as like a backup strategy if you fuck up. It's like, well, I can still get the 6 skip route, and it's going to only be slightly slower than the clean 5 skip route. So, but yeah, essentially each skip saves zero point 0.7 or zero point 0.8 seconds or something like that, like a little bit less than a
wow.
second. And so it's a huge deal whenever there's a new route figured out, the new skip, and then people are really going to push the times lower every time. So that's kind of how that panned out.
Yeah, and that's the only vertical stage, so
Yep,
it's unique in that
exactly.
way where it has that potential.
Yeah, exactly. It's cool. It's a cool stage.
So do the modern climbs up involve any like super difficult pixel perfect whatevers, or is there like a good rhythm to like
It's just a good rhythm. There's no pixel perfect ledge things. It's actually all just right jumps. So there are a couple jumps that they refer to as like tight jumps where you have to. So, or see if I can explain this well. As I said before, as long as you're jumping fully to the right, your value will not be ruined by your movement. Because if you cut back left, you interfere with that. But the real truth of it is that only matters while the screen is scrolling. So once the screen stops scrolling up on your jump, you're actually free to wiggle on the way down on the descent once the screen locks.
hmm,
So there's a couple tight jumps where you actually have to like move to the right and then the last second cut back left, but do it late enough that you're not interfering with the screen scrolling up. So if you do that, you won't get your skips. And yeah, JD started. I think it was JD that called them tight jumps, where you have to double back, which was already something I had started doing anyway. Once I realized it was possible to like double back on the descent and not ruin the screen scrolling and the jump value because it actually saves time in some other spots just getting to things faster. But yeah, so that was also a huge factor in that. But yeah, there's no pixel perfect weirdness, just a couple of double backs and the unfortunately with the 5 skip route, the flame jump is back in, which is a
hmm.
two frame window, I think. So
Yeah, two frame window's easy compared to everything else, right? So
yeah, I mean it feels fine. Like 2 frames is enough that you can be consistent. So
yeah, that's a cool development though.
yeah, it's an interesting stage, and I suspect that people aren't done figuring it out yet.
Ooh. Do you know like what? Well, I don't know how the tasks of the game differentiates
Oh,
from it, but does it like skip everything?
yeah, it the
Okay.
task does. I think so. Like the task runs are usually like 2 players because that's faster, and
Oh,
they
okay.
they ledge skip with the 2 players, which is like impossible. TMR and I tried to figure that out, and it was not easy. So what the task can do is it can wiggle and just make up the values it needs. And I think it has like 13 skips or
Oh my
something.
god. Okay.
But there's no way to replicate it. You
No,
can't
yeah.
just like wiggle in the air and be like frame perfect on your how long you're holding the D-pad directional down or whatever. So, but it's cool to watch. It's really unique run, and the spread rhythm, of course, is immaculate. It's inhuman.
Hmm. Of
You're
course.
talking like 20 to 30 presses per second of just perfect rhythm that never stops and kills everything as fast as possible. So,
Yeah, that's how TAS works.
yep, fun to watch, and it makes you feel like, oh, there's something I got to figure out, but you're like, no, some things just don't translate. So,
How much faster is it actually?
oh, I'm
Well,
trying to
it's two
think.
player though, so it like doesn't.
It's 2 player and it's also on the Japanese version because strangely enough, Contra's competitively ran on the US version, even though it's slower.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, so there's cut scenes in the Japanese version that are skippable, and if you play the US version, you just get like a screen that flashes the stage name over and over again, and it stays for a certain duration of time, and you can't skip that. So it actually adds up to like 24 seconds of time difference, if I remember correctly.
Hmm.
And so I think the two-player task that IKEA and Mars made is 8 minutes and some seconds. So it's like
Wow.
looks like it's like a full minute faster than the current records. Another guy, Schmitty, made a, like a one-player pseudo human task
Hmm.
that was like 9:29 or something like that
Wow.
for more reasonable reference. So yeah, to go from 9:47 to 9:29 or 9:28, yeah, I mean you're talking again like immaculate rhythm and multiple skips, but not like 13 skips. I think it had like 5 or something. So he tried to emulate more of the human strats, but the spread rhythm part was not very human in that run. So
Yeah, I
but yeah,
assume that's most of it right there. So,
yeah, right.
um, so if the Japanese version is that much faster, why isn't it used?
I don't know. I really don't. And then there's leaderboards for it and everything, but for some reason people just don't run that version, and
Hmm.
I don't know why. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure someone could make a case for it, and I think people have in the past, but I did used to be a moderator for the game, and when people brought it up, I was like, like it makes sense, but everybody just runs this version, so I'm not going to worry about trying to make some kind of changeover. And I don't think I know King Koopa definitely basically all my one player records he beat, and he holds them all now. And I think my fastest time on the Japanese version was a 9:29, and he took it way lower. But I don't remember if it's equivalent to a 9:47 or not. If so, if you were to add 24 seconds to his time, you'd know. But I don't know what he has it standing at right now.
Hmm. Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
interesting, I guess.
yeah. And for some reason, people just don't bother to run that version. It's like a very small leaderboard compared to the US version. So I don't know.
Hmm. Oh well, just
Yeah.
unique, interesting
Yep.
thing, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
So after all said and done, your time stands at like a super low 9:48,
Yeah, exactly.
and then the record's now like a mid 47.
I think so. Yeah, like
Hmm.
9:47.6 or something like that. So,
And do you know what like the time save is between those two?
um, so my 9:48 was sloppy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I went into base two on a phenomenal pace, and my rhythm was good in the first three rooms, and the first three rooms are really crucial. And I was like, oh, this run's going amazingly well. I can't believe the pace I'm on. And then I got to a really easy room and just botched it. I
Hmm.
just like blanked mentally and just did it completely wrong, and then messed up another room. So I lost 2 full seconds in base two,
No, wow.
and then still managed to get a faster time than my old time because of the 5 ledge skip waterfall route. And I had really good global timers and really perfect gameplay and no trolls, and the bosses cooperated. And so it ended up being a super fast time, but not a very clean looking run. And it was just like, oh, like if I had played better, I could subtract 2 seconds off this time somewhat, or depending on how the global timers would have changed, maybe not. But it seemed like I could have had like a 9:47 or maybe even a 9:46 if I would have played better. So that's the difference between his run and my run. Is
Wow.
mine was way sloppier. And I know he's not very content with his run either. He feels like his finished runs are, he would call them sloppy too. I think I've heard him say that. So um, it's definitely feasible to get a 9:46 and definitely feasible to get a 9:45 even if the stars align. And I think I hope he still keeps going and tries to make the stars align. So
Yeah, so any future time save sounds like either getting the rhythm down faster or just getting better cycles at the end.
yes,
Okay.
exactly. And that's really what's been stopping him. It's like when he does get on these phenomenal paces with the excellent rhythm. I mean, I've seen him get all the way to hanger on 9:45 pace, and then
Oh.
just either he'll make a mistake, which is heartbreaking, or
Hmm.
the game will throw one of those Mochila guys at him at the wrong time and just end it, and that's also equally heartbreaking. And there's an area in the game we call Heartbreak Alley where it's like the last stretch of hanger right before the boss fight, and there's these two turret guys, and these trolls can run out behind them, and you'll kill the turret guy, but your bullets are all gone by the time it's dead, and that guy just shoots you in the face. Like you like come
Wow.
down from your jump, and the bullet just goes boom, and there's nothing you can do to mitigate it. No pattern will save you. and that happened to him on like a 9:45 pace run one time. So
Oh my god.
it's just really been punishing him. It's been really unfair.
Yeah, how much time does a death lose like that?
I mean, so on a stage like Snowfield, where you can get your spread gun and your R back, because that's crucial. You lose 3 seconds per death.
Mm.
But if you die on hanger at the end and lose your spread gun,
Oh, okay.
the run's over. I
Yeah.
mean, you don't have the weapon set. You're just that's it. It's done.
So
So
the real answer is just if you get hit, GG.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
GG. Exactly. Run's over. Like if you're at a high level, you're resetting if you get shot at any point in the run. So time to start anew.
It really is absurd when you break down just how hard that game is.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot more to it. It's theoretically, it's like, oh yeah, you just press right and you shoot. But no, it's way harder.
It always is when you talk
Yeah.
about speedrunning, but Contra
Yes.
just
Exactly.
sounds like a whole nother level of
Yeah. It's
ridiculous
just.
execution and luck.
Yeah. It's pretty unique, and I hope more people. I mean, it's like pretty big game like on the NES speedrun
Mm.
boards compared to some. So, but I hope it keeps growing. I hope more people come to it and enjoy it, and Super C as well. It's a great speed run, and you don't have any spread rhythm in that game. So if spread rhythm's why you don't want to play Contra, go to Super C and try that out.
Fair enough. So yeah, it sounds like obviously not a limit, but like what
Mm.
humans can realistically achieve is a 45.
Yeah, it seems like it. It's also maybe possible to do a 44 if you play so amazing and perfectly and implement a strategy that's not very likely, which is called the leap of faith on Energy Zone. There's like
Mm.
random flame. This one's not attached to a global timer. It's like proximity based and randomized, and you basically have like a 96 to 98% chance of dying, and
Oh,
it's not hard. You just jump over a cliff, but the flame just blasts out at random times, and if it clips you, you're dead. So that strat saves about zero point 0.7 seconds. So if you were to have like that 9:45 run with that strat, it might be like a high 9:44.
but on top of everything, you have to win something
Yeah,
that's only like 3% odds
yeah.
in your
The
favor.
success rate is so low, and you're already like playing a game that doesn't let you succeed. So
That
it's a headache.
It's unreal.
Yeah.
What a video game.
Yeah, it's quite a game. It's quite a speed run.
It's really interesting when you break it all down like that.
Mm.
It's that sounds like just honestly one of the hardest speedruns out there at that point.
In certain ways, it is. Yeah, I mean, it's a little subjective. I'm sure some people
Well,
would
yeah.
enjoy it and think it's fine, and others would be like, "Screw this." I mean, I feel that way about Ninja Gaiden. So, like subjectively, my take on Ninja Gaiden is like the top runners are the best. Like it's insane. I can't believe it.
Yeah,
Doesn't make any
that is
sense.
another game that's pretty
Yeah,
crazy, but
yeah.
wow. So, I guess that's where any percent stands at the moment. So
Yes.
definitely
Yeah.
some time saved, but like, good lord.
Yeah, there's some time. There's definitely time to be made up, and people can do it if they have the patience and the perseverance. So
Yeah, so are there like any other categories for the game that are like pretty well optimized or got good
yeah,
battles
I
going?
there's nothing with really good battles, but
Mm.
low percent is very optimized now by King Koopa. Like I didn't put as much effort into that, and I'm pretty sure he beat my time by close to 10 seconds or something. I can't
Wow.
remember, but it's a substantial difference. Like he really crushed that one. I think I had like I think DK had that record too, and I think I got like an 11-12 or something like that. And I don't even know what he took it down to, but I
Hmm.
think his goal was to go sub 10, maybe even, or I'm sorry, sub 11. Um, but yeah, I don't know where it stands. I haven't kept up very well, but I know he's basically the dominant player now. He like basically did what DK did and what I did, and he's kind of just taken the reins.
Hmm. So is low percent just not collecting any weapon power ups?
Yeah, in Contra, that means you just use the pea shooter and don't grab anything. So
Got it.
it's a cool run. And it does offer a little bit of forgiveness in a sense, because if you do die, you're not losing any power ups.
It's
lose
just
3 seconds,
3 seconds.
and
Yeah.
you can keep going, but it is pretty grueling and punishing too. So
Yeah, I can imagine. It sounds like a lot more mashing for the
yeah,
yeah.
it's you have to be good at mashing to do the low percent run. That's killing things fast enough to not die. Yeah, if you watch like my attempt and compare it to DK's or King Koopa's, there's like the snowfield stage that I've talked about, and there are these tanks that come out, and you like get right up against them and mash them. The tank will shoot out more bullets on my run than it does on theirs because those guys are better at mashing than I am. So yeah, it's crucial in the low percent.
So yeah, the weapon power up save like well over a minute.
Yeah, huge. I mean, because you get the S gun, right, the spread gun, and then you get the R to stack on it, which makes the bullets travel across the screen more quickly. So that, and yeah, and once you get the timing down on like the boss kills and the mashing with the jumping to, optimize the amount of bullets entering a boss's face that's above you, like it's just quick. And when you're doing it with a pea shooter, it's complicated and there's moving parts. Like this base one boss, for instance, on low percent is brutal. It's pretty hard on any percent. It's the hardest boss to get down well, other than the glitch kill. But um, you're traveling left and right across the screen, jumping, dodging bullets, and shooting this eye with your pea shooter. And
No.
so the bullets actually hit. It's pretty hard.
My internet jump scared me for a second there.
Oh yeah, I saw that. It kind of buffered for a moment.
All right, well, hopefully everything's stabilized now. Don't
Yeah,
scare me
yeah.
like that, please. Thank you.
Hmm.
But yeah. Um so I guess I don't know if this is a fair question, but I was gonna say like what's the difficulty difference between any percent and low?
Well, as a whole, I would say like if you're talking top level, pretty similar because you have to have such good spread rhythm at a top level.
Hmm.
But baseline, low percent's much harder to learn, I
Yeah,
think.
well, okay.
Uh, so and like it's, but like I said, it is a little more forgiving in certain ways too. But yeah, I think I had more frustration with low percent as a whole than I did with any
I see.
percent. I think it felt more infuriating. If that's
Yeah,
a way to gauge it.
sounds like there's a lot more to deal with technically. So,
Yeah, for
uh,
sure.
so any other categories?
There's like a pacifist run, which is wild.
Really?
Yeah, IKEA was the first one that successfully submitted a pacifist run for the game, and you have to take deaths at certain places to even be able to get through it on that category. And he used to do it with 30 lives code, but we encouraged him. We were basically like, oh no, you should do it without. Like you should get a run without, and he did it. And
Hmm.
then last year, Combustible Dan beat that time. I think it was last year, maybe a year before. But yeah, somebody actually stepped up to the plate and took down IKEA's pacifist record, and that looks insane to me. I don't know if I'd ever try that.
How do you beat it pacifist? That sounds impossible to me.
Yeah, well, you have to use continues and lives. It's the only way it'll work. Ideally, you time your continues in a way where it's like, okay, I started this stage and I'm down to one life. I'll use a continue. But like even the snowfield, it's like, yeah, it's just so random because you're just running and jumping over guys, trying not to get killed, and the patterns are. The more you stand still in that game, the worse the backpack guys are. Like the moving actually helps, and if you're like backpedaling and jumping around, they're gonna start swarming you. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know how it works. I've never
Hmm.
even looked into trying to figure it out. I just watched the run and I was like, damn, that's nuts. And
God,
you have to do some death abuse stuff in a couple spots, and yeah, it's crazy.
it sounds hard for like the bases because
Yeah,
those
you
guys
have
are all
to.
over the place.
Yeah, and you have to not kill them, and yeah, and it's like pacifist, I guess, is kind of like low percent too in games based off of the old rule sets from SDA. It's like you're not supposed to shoot power ups. You're not supposed to shoot unnecessary things. So yeah, you're doing it low percent because you have to kill the things to progress the game, right? There's certain things
Yeah,
that have to be killed, but others that don't. So yeah, it's while you're killing those things, you can't kill the other random guys.
yeah. Wow. Everything about this game just sounds hard.
Yeah, yeah, it's a
Very much.
complicated one for sure.
And it's
It's
somehow
kind of it's one
getting
of those,
harder.
yeah, it's one of those classic NES hard games too. You know, it always makes those lists of like hard video games or whatever. I think it's a little casually, it's not as hard as people make it out to be, but it's a speed run and it's pretty grueling.
Yeah, definitely sounds like it.
Hmm.
It's crazy. So, I guess anything else about Contra specifically that we didn't go over yet?
Not that I could think of. And then also to just to continue on my timeline a little bit, I did actually go back to Super C as well because I did speed run that game after I got the 948 after the somebody saw video, and I got a time of 12:50, and that kind of was like a record at the time, but it really wasn't because I know for a fact that Outside Lutz beat that game in 12 minutes and 42 seconds or 40, maybe it was 43. And I was one of the people watching him do it live on his Twitch channel, but it was cutting out.
Mm.
And then he didn't locally record.
Oh, well,
um, yeah, so no vid, no did kind of thing, right?
of course.
Um, yeah, so, but since then, other people have beaten what I like. I think Stans took the record back almost immediately after I got it because
Hmm.
he like got a 12:49, and then Lutz started playing it again, and Stans took it down to 12:44, and Lutz got a 12:46, and my 12:50 is still in third. So I was like, well, you know what? Maybe I'm not having as much fun trying to keep up with King Koopa and Contra as I thought I would. I'm gonna try some Super C out for a while, and I was like, maybe I can beat my time. But then I started working on other projects in life, and just not. I just lost interest in speedrunning at that moment. That's kind of basically the last thing I actually speedran was Super C for a couple months there, and I got pretty close to my time. I think I got a 12:53, and I think I could definitely beat my time. I don't know if I could get the record or not, but I could beat my time, and I just lost interest in it. Started doing other things, like started playing in a band, started a podcast. So I
Oh,
just kind of fell off. So
so we're both podcasters, are we?
yeah, yeah. I haven't released any of my stuff yet. I'm still
Oh, I
working
see.
on things behind the scenes, but yeah, yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I don't know anything about Super C myself.
Okay, yeah.
So how does that how is that run unique, I guess, in comparison to Contra?
Okay, so Super C is like all the worst factors of the backpack guys you can imagine and like multiplied. It's learning how to
Sounds
run
great.
that game. Yeah, yeah. Like this is my way of trying to get people to run Super C is like if you can like hate the game for a week, you'll learn to love it.
I see.
Because like I want to be honest about the fact that the first stage is miserable to learn. It's so challenging to like get through it clean and do it fast. But the big difference in the speed runs is that the spread gun's no longer like the top weapon. The F gun's actually the best. You can actually charge it up by pressing and holding in the B button, and when you release it, it'll shoot out a bigger fireball that kills like certain turrets in like one shot that normally take many shots to kill. So that's the big factor that's different is just the weapon change up. So you're not having to mash as much, which is great. Your arm gets to relax a little more. But you still kind of need to mash on the boss fights with the F gun to kill them fast. So there's still an element of mashing, but just not as grueling as the first game. Um, and the other big element that's different is like I guess it's kind of similar in a way. It's like a frame perfect glitch on one of the vertical scrolling stage. There's like these elevators you get on and they move super slow. But there's like this animation that happens before they lock in where they move kind of fast. And if you kill a certain object on the frame perfect moment with the F gun, it has to be the F gun, I'm pretty sure. The elevator will stay moving at that speed for longer, and it's like a 12-second time save on that stage.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so it's just like different types of strats and different weapon sets, but the gameplay feels very similar, and it feels a lot like Contra. And so if you're good at one, I feel like by default you'll have a natural transition into the other if you want to learn it. So Super C I picked up really quickly by comparison. I feel because of my experience with the first Contra, I think it really made it much easier for me than it would have been otherwise. I think if I would have started with Super C, I don't know if I ever would have stuck with it and got to Contra. Even I would have been like turned off by run and gun NES games or something.
Yeah. So it's similar, but like at least with the way the game is routed, it's
Yeah,
makes it a little different.
yeah, exactly. Just different strategies with the weapons because if you grab you can do the spread gun in that game if you want to start, but um, it lags the screen immensely because there's just so many enemies coming out all the time. So it's if you want to get an optimal time, you want to learn how to use that F gun instead. So
Hmm. Yeah, nothing like making a hard game by putting so many sprites on the screen that the game can't
yeah,
even handle it itself.
right. And that game did a good job of actually like mitigating the slowdown from the enemies to a degree, and they kind of like rather than having like flickering, they almost made the enemies like a little bit transparent on purpose. So when they do pile up, they don't like crash the game. So
Hmm. Yeah, I've only ever seen like the disappearing every frame flickering kind of thing,
right,
so
yeah, it's a little different. It's like a steady kind of appearance instead. So
hmm.
it's neat. Good workaround from Konami.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely sounds unique. I haven't
Mm,
seen something like that. It's always just the
yeah.
flashing.
Mm,
It's that classic NES lag,
yeah.
sprite overload.
Right.
So I guess when you were talking about like playing Contra over the years, you'd say you'd take a break and do some other stuff.
Mm.
What's that other stuff?
One of my favorite speed runs I ever did was the Super Mario Bros. 2, like the USA Super Mario Bros. 2.
Oh.
Um, and I ran that for I don't know how long, but I really loved that speed run. It's like maybe my favorite speed run I've ever done, even though I don't have like a competitive time. But I did take the time to get a sub 9 in it,
Mm.
and I did learn the veggie glitch and all that stuff too. So I would bring the veggie fight into the Birdo, and that was what got me to get to the sub 9 time. I think I had like an 8:54. Um, but yeah, to me that's like my maybe my favorite speed run to watch other people do as well, and was the one I had the most fun doing. But it's pretty high execution and at the top level, like watching Cool Kid play SMB2, I was like, I'm not cut out for this. Like, I'm not gonna go for like a record or a top 3 time in this game. This is nuts.
Yeah, it's
um,
crazy how hard that game is.
yeah, it's nuts. Have you ever speedrun that one? I know you've done a lot of the Mario
I've
games.
dabbled.
Yeah.
I don't have anything too good, but I have like put up an any percent time that
Okay.
exists, and then
Yeah. Yeah.
an all levels time that for me I think is pretty good. Like
Yeah.
25
Sweet.
minutes is fine,
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's good for doing
especially for
everything.
one PB ever, because
Yeah.
it's really just hard to like finish a run of all levels. The
Yeah.
game's
I
just
could.
brutal.
Yeah. I've not even tried. That seems like a nightmare.
Oh yeah, I don't know how people like run that competitively. Like it's like any percent, but like twice as long and twice as dumb. I don't know. That's
Yeah.
speaking from me who isn't top level, so
Right.
take what I say with a grain of salt, I guess. But
Sure.
just
Yeah.
watching it, it's like, oh my god.
Um, oh yeah, a couple. I was just gonna. I brought up my speedrun.com profile because I couldn't remember what all I ran. I've also run. I did one run of Castlevania. I did like a.
Mm.
I learned. I just took the game as a one off. Like I did. I learned it and streamed it for like 6 hours. Like did the whole process, and I got a PB of 12:17. So that's where my
Wow.
Castlevania time will stand forever. I'll never try to improve it.
All right.
Did a Panic restaurant run like 7 years ago. That's a 14:22. It's nothing special. Um, did DuckTales a long time ago. It looks like, and I used to speedrun Tetris for 100 lines.
Mm.
I would start on level 19, and I'm 60th. It looks like nothing special. Renegade on the NES. I did that 6 years ago. That game, I think, made me angrier than anything I've ever played in my life. I don't understand how Super Pit Road just like runs that game and has fun. I wanted to murder my cartridge. And then Karnov got pretty popular for a while there, and I definitely joined in on all the Karnov Ember stuff. If you've heard anybody talk about that,
Oh
but
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I've got 12th in that. I've got a 9:05, a pretty decent time from 5 years ago, it looks like. Oh, and Chippendale, I have a decent time in as well. It's a popular game. And I actually have a co-op time with Sinister. We did like a run at one of the GDQs. That was super fun. And then Mighty Bomb Jack. That's the game I most recently ran aside from the two Contra games. That speedrun's really cool. It's like, have you ever played Mighty Bomb Jack at all? Are
No,
you familiar
no,
with it?
not
Okay,
at
so
all.
it's like, there's like these real long levels, but there's these bonus rooms, and if you just go through all the bonus rooms, you can beat the game faster. Like, kind of cut through a lot of the extra stuff, and you'll get a bad ending by doing it. So that's like the any percent speedruns with bad ending using the bonus rooms. But I got a second place time in that game a ways back, and I think I'm in fourth now. And the K2 kind of had like cool strategies from a long time ago. But then like 3Creepio and Space Colonizer came around and they like reformatted the whole way you do the run. They figured out some crazy shit that haven't got a chance to look into yet. And if I do come back to speedrunning, I think that's a game I'll want to focus on because it's a really cool run. And it's actually a really fun game. It has great controls. The speedrun's super fun. I highly recommend it. If you're looking for something short and quick to learn, but that has high skill, Mighty Bomb Jack's a cool run. So uh, yeah, I don't know. It's a unique game. It's like it's kind of its own thing, but it has great controls. So it's just fun to play for that reason alone. I think.
Yeah, that's good. I'm noticing a trend of NES only.
Yeah, I have one Super Nintendo run, and you could guess what it is. Probably it's Contra 3: The Alien Wars.
Shocking.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Mm.
And I don't have like a super competitive time or anything. I just set a goal for play it on hard mode and beat it in under 15 minutes, and I got 14:59 one day, and I was like, well, that's it. That's the goal. So I'm done.
Hmm.
But that's a cool speed run. Like Super C, it's like very frustrating in the sense that the amount of enemies and bullets coming at you is pretty obscene. It's hard to deal with, and there's a lot of really rough RNG. Like at the high level, it ruins people's runs. So that one's even more brutal than the first Contra, and maybe even Super C on RNG. I would argue,
Wow.
but a great game.
If you hate RNG speedruns, I guess just avoid Contra at all
Yeah,
costs.
yeah. Don't do Contra. Don't do Little Mermaid
Oh,
either.
damn. Gonna have to cross that off, I guess. No.
Yeah, if you don't want RNG bosses, don't do it. It's only the boss fights in that game. It's like three of the boss fights.
Hmm. So, I guess out of that collection, is there anything that stands out that you haven't talked about
Um,
yet?
Not so much. I mean, like Karnov, I just love it, so that one stands out, and that's like its own weird, unique speed run because all you're doing is manipulating how the screen scrolls because that game is a really strange screen scroll. I don't know what Data East was doing, but they like programmed it very oddly, and you kind of end up at the front of the screen a lot. So if you position yourself correctly, enemies won't hit you, and you'll get through things faster. It's all about where the screen's at and where you're at in position. I know it's a strange thing. It's a very unique run in that sense. And honestly, I think it's a game that's kind of underrated. Like people kind of hate on it, but I also kind of enjoy janky games, so maybe my opinion's obsolete. But I actually think it's really fun and kind of charming. I love Karnov. I think that's a kind of a unique speed run that more people should try just because it's not that hard to learn and it has a pretty weird system for changing items. You have to like hit the select button and it's like kind of confusing. So that could maybe be a turn off. Once you get it dialed in, it's like it's not so bad. You just got to get adapt to it.
Yeah. I've definitely heard some Karnov hype over the years, but
Yeah,
I know nothing about it, so
yeah. It's definitely a meme of
yeah,
sorts,
okay. Fair enough.
but it's actually a fun speed run, and there's some pretty competitive times in it. Like the Hyrexen, I think, has the record, and managed to take it from Dragon Darch a long time, like a ways back, and he crushed that game for years, and nobody was really close to him. So it got pretty competitive during some of those Karnov Ember events and stuff during the months. But um, another game on that list that I think is really good and ties in with my gameplay style, obviously, is Jackal, which is like a top-down Contra type game where you're in a jeep shooting bullets and grenades. That speedrun's really cool. that's one that if I get interested in speedrunning again, I'd like to come back to. So Mighty Bomb Jack and Jackalope are the two I'm the most interested in, aside from Contra, when I think about speedrunning. And even though I'm not like actively speedrunning right now, I think everybody is like this. It's still always in the back of my mind. It's always kind of ever present. So
Of course, you can never
yeah.
forget.
Hmm.
Yeah, you mentioned GDQ, and that'd be a good topic.
Oh
Have you
yeah,
run
sure.
at events?
Yeah, I think it was 2018 when I first got to run the GDQ, and TMR and I did a co-op run of Contra that went so well we couldn't believe it. We
Hmm.
beat the game in 9 minutes and 58 seconds at a live GDQ event. Um,
Wow.
it was pretty close to flawless. To put it into perspective, we also grinded down the two-player record that year and set a 953 on two players, and we got a 958 at the event for the live
Oh
event.
my
So
god.
yeah, it was
Okay.
a big deal. It was like one of those runs where we just got lucky. I mean,
Hmm.
we had the skill, but we got lucky for sure. It's like it was
Well, yeah,
nuts.
with
We couldn't believe
Contra,
it.
you have to.
Yeah, so it was wild. I couldn't believe it. I was like, in the video is funny, like, because I'm like just still in shock, sitting there, and TMR is getting up and like screaming and like trying to hug me, and I'm just like in the chair. I'm just like, don't even know how
Like,
to
what the
react.
fuck
I'm
happened?
just like, what just happened? Yeah, it's really funny. So, but yeah, that was really cool. And I think that same year I raced Indy and Chippendale Rescue Rangers. It was supposed to be a three-way race with me, Gyarados, and Indy. And I think Gyarados ended up having to not be able to. He couldn't make it to GDQ, unfortunately. But Indy whipped my ass, which is no surprise. That dude's unstoppable. So,
Yeah, of course.
pretty sure I died like somewhere in the latter half of the game, like one of the harder levels. I just like fell into a pit or something. He was just cruising through like it was no big deal.
Yeah, Chippendale's
um,
a very like skillful run for
it
sure.
is,
There's like
yeah.
no RNG in that, I think.
Yeah,
So it's like,
well, yeah, once they figured out the pause trick at the beginning where
oh
you
yeah,
like
that's right.
wait for the demo to play, and then once the demo plays, you hit start, and then you can go, and then it's always the same. So it used to be like somewhat RNG based, but not heavily. It was fine. It was like manageably so. Like it used to be getting sub 10 in Chippendale used to be like a huge deal,
Hmm.
especially when there were still RNG elements. And so I had managed to get a 959. I was pretty highly ranked in it at that time when I raced Indy, but now I'm like so low on the board because that manipulation just really opened up the doors for people and it really
Hmm.
popularized the run. And it was already a pretty popular run. But yeah, it is a lot of high execution stuff. And even with the patterns being good, the boss fights are pretty tricky, some of them. So,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
the
like,
axe boosts on J are nuts.
yeah, yeah. I've watched plenty of that game, and it's just yeah, that's another one of those things. But what's nice about it is the lack of RNG,
Yeah.
which is my hatred. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad there's like a pure skill based run out there.
Yeah. It definitely is. Don't play number two. Uh, that's
I have
the
heard nothing about number two. So
Okay, so that's the worst RNG in any video game I've ever heard of.
really,
Yeah, you can lose 2 minutes on a boss fight.
huh?
So yeah, seriously, like there's this boss that's like a ghost, and you like won't be able to hit him. Like you just won't be able to attack him for like because he'll just like I forget what it is. There's something weird about him where he like disappears. And so if he doesn't just give you the weapon you need, or if he doesn't drop it, you just don't get to hit him for like minutes on it. DuckTales 2 is like that too. There's a boss where you just don't get to attack him because he's uncooperative. So those two games are the worst for RNG on the NES that I've heard of.
Wow,
Avoid the sequels.
that's crazy that Chippendale
Yeah.
One is like this perfect all execution run, and then
Hmm.
its
Yeah.
sequel is one of the worst RNG fests.
Yeah, it's miserable. I've heard it's the worst one. Like the time swings on it are nuts. So
Wow, that's wild to think about. Yeah, I've heard
mhm.
nothing about the second game. Everyone always just pops off about the first one, and rightfully
Yeah.
so. It's an incredible speed run, but
Yeah. The co-op
uh,
runs are so cool too.
oh, especially the co-op.
Yeah, watching Sinister and General Andrews bring it lower and lower has been really cool because I think it was pretty sure it was Blecky and Cypher that had the record before, and it was one of those records that was always one that I always looked at and thought, wow, this is so cool. It's cool to see someone come along and actually push it further. So
Yeah, you said you did co-op with Sinister.
yeah, we did like just basically for a couple of days at one of the, I think it was GDQ or SGDQ in like maybe 2019. I think it was 2019, and we would just meet up in the practice room and do some runs. And we got a 939, I think. So I think it's like in the top 5 on the leaderboard, but he's like probably in all the top 5 spots on the leaderboard. I think he did it
Yeah.
with like, I think he did co-op with Indy. I think he did co-op with some other people. So it's pretty funny.
Yeah, he loves the co-op in that game.
Yeah.
So I think we were talking about that. Yeah, just the top 10 could all be him at some point, just with different
Yeah.
people.
Right.
That'd be funny.
It's hilarious.
But yeah, super cool run. Yeah, especially
Mm,
again the co-op because that
yeah.
saves a ton of time over
Yeah.
the
Just doing
just
the
normal.
floating balloon trick and stuff. It's really neat.
Yeah, some crazy stuff there.
Mm.
So do you have any other GDQ experience?
Yeah. The other run I got to do was a co-op low percent run with Rot Dog at maybe, I don't know if think it
Contra
was,
1,
I
you
think it,
mean?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and it was, I think that was SGDQ of 2019.
Wow.
And that run was not very good, unfortunately.
Well, it's co-op low percent,
Yeah,
so
I think on stage 1, I shot a power up right into Rot Dog,
oh, so
just like
that kind of ruins things.
nullified it right out of the gate. It was really funny, actually. But we had to like, you know, he just killed himself in a pit. We just started fresh. He confirmed it. Okay, yeah, 2019.
Okay, well, sounds like a good start.
Yeah. So, but it was fun. I had a good time. We did not sleep. I
Hmm.
think our run was at like 7 in the morning, and we just didn't even bother to go to bed. We just stayed up all night and then just did the run, and we were just like so fried. So, but
Well,
it was fun.
can't say I'd recommend that, but
No.
as long as it was
It,
fun.
oh yeah, I had a great time. I was never worried about like having to do a phenomenal run. And like I said, we got TMR, and I got so lucky then that happened. So it's cool. Like I had my one run where it was like, I look like I know what I'm doing. So that's awesome. But otherwise, it's a live performance, and you can't expect it to go perfectly. So I can accept that I fell on a pit in a Chippendale race and that I didn't actually do a low percent run at the event fully, but it's technicalities. It's fine. You're just showcasing a game and you're raising money. It's cool. It's like, and honestly, it's super fun. Like the first time I did it, I was like super nervous, but that time I just felt very comfortable up there and was just like, oh well, it happens. You make mistakes.
Apparently, you need the nerves because that seemed to go pretty well.
Yeah, you're right. If I'm nervous, I'll do better.
Might be the strat.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, I think there's only three GDQ runs I've got under my belt.
yeah, and do you only go to the events if you have a run in?
I did go in 2017 where I didn't have any runs in just because I wanted to meet people, and
Yeah.
then in 2020 COVID happened, so I pretty much fell out of the habit of going and
Hmm.
haven't really gotten back into it. So
Yeah, that makes
um,
sense.
I think there's at some point I might like to go back. It's really fun. There's nothing like just being in the practice room with everybody. I know you've been too, and like I know
Oh, I
that
can't
too.
stop
It's
going to them. My
yeah.
bank account is crying.
Yeah, it's crazy up there. Yeah, because I think we were there for what I forget what year it was. I know we were both like in the same area doing that thing that Enemy was like doing the RGL TV kind of stream thing from the practice room
The
or
nest
whatever.
block stuff.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
you did
yeah.
like a run and I did a run, some other people, but yeah,
Is that HDQ 2019?
I think it was.
Yeah,
I think
that
that
was the
sounds right.
first one
Okay, yeah,
because they had one at SGU 2019. I wasn't there, and then there was one at HGU 2020.
okay, yeah.
But yeah, 19
Was
was the
that?
first one. I witnessed the inception a little bit.
Yeah.
So, and they still do it to this day. I did an S block run
Okay,
a few
cool.
months
Yeah,
ago at
awesome.
HDQ, so they're still doing it.
Man, yeah. God, yeah. No, I miss going to those events. It's like pretty indescribable, honestly, if you're speedrunner and or just like a video game nerd in general. It's like
Mhm.
it's very awesome. It's very fun to just like hang out with people that oftentimes aren't even otherwise very social, like in an outward way, like
Mhm.
just and then to like meet them actually and like hang out and have fun and like have this camaraderie. It's like it's kind of special and unique. I just really like that about it.
And it's all for a good cause. It's W's all
Yeah,
around.
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I've always said like if you're a speedrunner, you have to go to at least one event. Like
Yeah, agreed,
it,
agreed.
it really is just everything you could want out
Yeah,
of the community, I guess. So
yeah, and
super
you just
fun
got like
times.
the person that's the best at a game sitting right next to you, and you can just like pick their brain about it and learn. It's really cool. It's just such a fun opportunity. So
Oh yeah. Are there any other events you've participated in?
I did one of the speed gaming live events
Oh
that
yeah, they have live
Diesel
events.
put on, and so I did a contra run for that. We kind of had like an RGL showcase there when I was more involved with the RGL team. So it
Hmm.
was like me and Enemy and um, Cantaloupe was there. Like a bunch of people were there. Just a lot of the people you'd see at the GDQ event were there for the speed gaming live event, and that was cool because it was like a little smaller. So, but it was good. Yeah, I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I go to Pace, which is kind of
Hmm.
smaller as well, and I think they, or at least they have happened at the same time, the Speed Gaming Live
Yeah,
event. And they're, I know this because I know someone that was like at Pace and then went to that and just drove there because it was only like a couple hours away.
yeah,
Just funny.
that's awesome.
Like they, I don't know if they had a run for both. I don't remember, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was just
Mhm.
funny.
Yeah, yeah. It was
Gotta love those smaller events.
yeah,
Although they're gonna, smaller events are eventually gonna keep growing, and then it's like, okay, now we just have a bunch of
right.
big events,
Yeah,
which is also
exactly.
fine. But
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, it's just kind of natural progression of things, and I get like I know people like get a little bummed out when things get too big, but it's also cool to see it happen and like
mm,
um, you know, not everything's gonna stay the same, so you just gotta have to roll with the punches. It's not that big a deal. I feel like people get a little too hung up on the idea of like well, GDQ used to be this and that. It's like, yeah, well, it did used to be, but of course it's not now. I mean, look what it's become. It's like, it's not perfect. Nothing is, but it's still raising money for good causes and it's fun. And like, if you go, you'll have a good time. So instead of like talking shit about it on the internet, just go have fun, you know?
yeah, you can always like have your own little meetups if you want a more
Yeah.
smaller thing.
Hmm.
But yeah, as other events grow more and more, that just means if you want to go, that's more people to talk to. And generally,
Yeah.
like everyone's, I'd like to think pretty cool.
Yeah.
So,
Most of my interactions have been very enjoyable. And, you know, I, I'm sure there's been things that have arisen for people that haven't been pleasant, but I've
oh,
had a really good time for sure. And
yeah, I've got
yeah,
no
I don't know.
negative things to say.
Hmm.
And yeah, again, as smaller events keep growing, that just means more and more money for charity as
Yeah,
well. So, again,
yeah.
W,
Hmm. And the only
no
other thing I've
downsides.
ever done as like an event was Louisville has like an arcade expo, and I live in Bloomington, Indiana, which is like an hour and 30 minutes north.
Hmm.
And I did like a live contra run there at that arcade expo, and that was pretty fun. It was like something that L Rock kind of had connections for and got me to do a run there with some other people, and people in the room didn't really know anything about speedrunning, so it was really cool because people
Hmm.
were like, "Oh, this guy's gonna die like instantly. It's Contra. This game's so hard," and I beat it pretty fast. I think it was like a 10:08 or something.
Oh
So it
wow,
was
okay, yeah,
pretty. It like blew all the people in the room away because they just didn't know what speedrunning was. It was really fun. So that
that's
kind of
got to be
event was even.
funny. Just like
Yeah,
they have no idea. It's like, yeah, I'm
yeah,
just gonna play this game. Hopefully everything goes well. It's just like,
yeah.
oh,
People are like, "Oh, okay, damn." Like, it really can be like that. All right, yeah. No, it was a fun experience. And the arcade expo is just rad anyway. There's just people selling old video games, and there's arcade cabinets and pinball machines littering this whole giant convention center room. So Louisville Arcade Expo is rad. Definitely recommend it for anybody in the Midwest.
hmm, I guess that wouldn't be too far away from me either. But
Oh
I
yeah,
don't really travel that much.
yeah.
Well,
Where
except
you
for
at?
uh near St. Louis.
Oh okay, yeah, yeah, cool.
Um, But yeah, like I gotta save all the money for the speedrunning events. Like
Yeah, no,
I
that
can't
makes sense.
afford to go anywhere else
Yeah,
because
got to get those plane
unfortunately,
tickets.
travel expensive. Very
Yes, for
sad,
sure.
but
Yeah.
it is worth it. So
Hmm.
so I know we talked about it a little bit, or it was part of the timeline, but
Hmm.
obviously there was the summoning salt video, which
Yeah.
is always a big deal for a community because
Right.
those just get a ton of eyes on it.
Hmm.
So like the Contra history didn't seem like it was like a ton of people. Like there's not a ton of runs, I guess, compared to other games at least. But
Right. Yeah. Like the top runners, there's far less names than in certain other games for sure.
yeah, it was still an interesting history though because of
Hmm.
you know when you learn about how complicated the game is, it's like, oh my god, this is what
Yeah.
these people are doing.
Right.
So that's when I think that was like my first like true understanding of like, oh, this is how this game operates, huh?
Yeah.
So, and
It's
I'm sure it's that way for a lot of people. So,
yeah, definitely. Which is cool. That's what's so cool about his videos is like, uh, he obviously just he makes them so well.
yeah, of
But and he,
course.
he breaks things down. He talks to all the right people, and he makes like a pretty concise sort of like index of like how a game operates and it's palatable for people that don't even like care about speedrunning. It's pretty awesome that he does it.
Hmm.
So, um, yeah, I mean,
I don't know if
it's
I'd be
hard.
here if it wasn't for that.
Yeah,
My
right.
introduction was one of his videos in 2017. So,
Okay, yeah, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, no, his reach is great, and also, he's actually it's funny. Salt was one of the first people I followed on Twitch back when he was like just speedrunning SMB1 and Punch Out, had the
man,
record.
even SMB one,
Yeah, and
old school
like
times.
yeah, and he maybe had like 10 viewers at a time sometimes. You know what I mean? Like it was
Hmm.
like back in 2016, and it was like I would watch him and Arcus. And that was back when Arcus didn't have a cowboy hat and mustache.
Oh,
And
Orcus,
like,
huh?
yeah, it was Orcus days. Like
Damn.
he was the first person I followed, and Salt was one of the next. So it's crazy to see how big he's become and what he's done. But
Yeah, just
yeah,
following for Ninja Gaiden and Punch Out, and it's like, oh, now they're famous people.
yeah,
It is
exactly.
interesting to think about. I've
Yeah,
seen that a
yeah, they're
lot
both,
over the
yeah,
years. Is like you befriend all these people through the speedrun community, and then it's like start actually using YouTube correctly or something, and all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, all right,
yeah. That pop,
now all
pop.
my friends are famous.
Yeah, it's
What
so weird,
happened?
but also cool.
No,
Yeah,
yeah, it's super interesting. I think it's
yeah.
helped a lot with like starstruck kind of stuff. It's just like when you know someone as a
Mm.
human before they're popular, it's like, oh, okay, this is just
Yeah,
everyone.
it's
No
just
need, no need
they're
to
all
be
just
weird about it, I guess.
yeah, yeah. You don't need to like overly idolize people. You can be like, oh, that's awesome to do
Especially
this.
not on the internet. Don't
Yeah,
idolize people.
no, don't.
But yeah. Uh, but yeah, I was just saying what your thoughts were on the video. It sounds like pretty good.
Oh, I was so stoked. I didn't know if he would ever do Contra, and I know Zallard really wanted him to because Zallard always said trying to tell Salt to do Contra, man. But yeah, like when he hit me up, I couldn't believe it, and it was in 2020. It was like height of COVID. Things were feeling pretty abysmal. I work in healthcare, and it was rough, and like
Mm.
I was also going through this really bad back injury and stuff, and so it was like kind of a beacon for me, honestly, in those times that he wanted to do that. It was like huge for me. And I was just so excited to like every time he asked me a question about the game, I was like so excited to tell him everything I could or like what I thought I knew about it, because I love talking shop with Contra. And yeah, so I was blown away that he even wanted to do it. And then when it finally like dropped, it was like, yeah, I don't know, it just felt like a huge moment for me, and it was awesome. And like a huge moment for Contra too, obviously, like just for the community and for it brought so many new runners. It was just cool. It's a pretty magical thing that he's doing. It's like
Mm.
to be a part of even just one episode in that way felt big. So it was cool.
Yeah, I was gonna also ask, like, how was the community impacted by it? Like, did some new faces pop up and give it a try, or
Yeah,
more interest?
yeah. I mean, I think King Koopa has the record now because of it. You know, I think
Oh,
he
really?
got into the game from seeing that video. So,
Wow.
you know,
Okay.
started out as an SMB1 runner and then was like,
Oh.
I'm gonna try some Contra.
Well,
So
there's something
yeah,
I know a little about, I guess. So.
yeah, right, yeah, you definitely know.
I mean, yeah, I don't know if I would have done Mario stuff if it wasn't for stumbling upon the Mario 1 video. So I
Yeah,
guess it
yeah,
works out.
right, it's
All
crazy.
comes full circle.
Yeah, and you got a 455, so no joke.
Yeah.
It's wild. Yeah,
But
no,
more
it definitely
importantly, I've
inspires.
had every other world record. I just haven't had any percent. But, that's
Oh
all
no,
people care about,
right, that's
unfortunately.
what people pay attention to. So yeah, that's wild.
But yeah, it is kind of funny that any percent is what got me into it, and then I ended up being good at everything. Well, I mean, I'm good at 80%. I won't say I'm not, but
Yeah.
it's like
Oh yeah,
I
you're
ended up
amazing.
being the best at one point in everything else,
Yeah,
except that,
yeah,
because
that's
that
funny.
any percent is way too fucking hard.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Especially now, it's like up until the lightning port 2 or whatever, there was always a
Hmm.
chance, but after that, it's like nah, that
Yeah,
strat is
next
not a
level.
thing for me.
Yeah, that's
No,
crazy.
thank you. There's only like a few people that I can see that would want to add that.
Yeah,
So world records are going to be like very slim at this point for
small.
that game. It's crazy.
Is it going to be more like 8.4 improvements that are causing the difference at this point?
Well, it has to be now.
Yeah, okay,
There's
that's what I thought.
the improvements over that run now are 22 frames, and all of them are
Okay,
8.4. That's it.
that's that's crazy.
That is
Oh,
literally it.
that's nuts. That doesn't make any sense.
Technically, you could not do the 4-2 frame rule and then play 8-4 literally perfectly and beat
Yeah,
it by 1 frame, but you're not gonna get a perfect
you're not gonna.
8-4 at the end of a
No,
run.
that's not gonna happen with your nerves skyrocketing and yeah,
And
damn,
like doing
that's nuts.
it took forever for like a perfect IL of that game of that
Yeah,
level to even happen. Like that's not something that'll I see ever being run viable. It'll get like close, but like
yeah,
especially just the first room strat, just nah.
yeah. Oh yeah,
That's way too technical.
yeah, that's nuts.
Even with 4-2 being added, perfect 8-4 is the hardest level, hardest like perfect level in the game
Right,
by
because there's
far. And
no
it
frame
took
rule, and you're
yeah.
and the execution on the stuff looks nuts. Like I not obviously I don't know it like you do, but just watching it and listening to the breakdowns, I'm like, my God.
Yeah, you listen to the breakdowns, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
And I think it's like that for most games that look simple,
yeah,
which is a lot of NES games, they're fairly
right,
straightforward looking because of the
yeah,
primitive stuff they use to make these games. But like
yeah,
with Contra, you take a deeper dip into things and it's like, oh my God, okay.
yeah. Like the waterfall levels,
Yeah.
you don't realize how complicated that is.
Like
It's
it
like,
looks
oh,
like you're just jumping up, but it's like, no,
yeah,
actually.
yeah,
And yeah, it's like that for so
yeah,
many games. And yeah, for Mario 1, it's just like, yeah, it looks like you do this flagpole glitch and nowadays you hear so much
yeah,
about the game where most people know like, oh, but it's like when you first learn it, it's like, oh,
yeah,
every time you do this, it's multiple frame perfects. That's
yeah.
fun.
That's crazy.
And then you do it with one hand on GDQ, and everyone thinks it's easy.
Yeah,
And
right.
whoops, not
Yeah,
not helping the allegations. It's actually
yeah.
hard, I promise. But
Oh, I could tell it's hard. I saw TMR trying to learn it at one of the GDQs from Darbian, and
oh yeah,
it took him a long time to get a flagpole glitch. And TMR is amazing, so
yeah, it's one of the tricks of all time.
yeah,
Yeah, I've seen people try it. It's just it's so
yeah,
hard.
brutal.
Yeah, I can't even imagine people trying some of the Contra stuff.
Yeah, it's all crazy. It's all crazy in its own way. So,
Mhm. Are there any other runs that you probably never gonna run, but you just look at and it's like, oh my god.
oh, let me think. Like, I mean, honestly, like I like Ninja Gaiden was the one where once I saw like how complicated it got, I was like, I'm done with this. And then
I'm out.
SMB1, I'm like intrigued by actually, but I
Mm.
don't think I would want to like. I don't think I'd want to go full blown. I think maybe like a sub 5 would be fun to achieve,
Sub
just because.
5, sub 5 is not too bad.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I've heard that.
People like all you hear about Mario 1 is, oh, it's so hard
Mhm.
because at top level it is, but like people have gotten sub 5 in a day. It's totally
Yeah,
possible.
yeah. It just seems like it's so broken down now, and there's like
Hmm.
so many ways to like solidify your chances that a sub 5 seems very feasible. So that's something that's been on my mind to try, but I definitely have no interest in getting to your level.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
no. I
it
would not
seems
recommend it.
seems wild to me. Yeah, and honestly, like gimmick,
Oh
that
yeah,
speedrun
gimmick.
looks amazing. I don't think I'd ever want to try it. It's like so complicated. It blows my mind. But I love watching Becco run it or anybody else that's good at it. So
Yeah,
that's probably
I
the
haven't
best
seen much of
example.
gimmick, but what I have seen, it's like that as an NES game is very just impressive for
Yeah,
the
it's
hardware.
yeah, for sure. It's a standout soundtrack
Hmm.
to like the I'm drawing a blank on the composer's name, but Sunsoft just has great music and that they have like a special sound chip for that game that like boosts all the instrument sounds. It's like FM synth quality, so it's nuts. But yeah, great game, cool graphics, advanced sound chips and graphics chips, and you like throw a star and ride on it and it bounces and the speed runs nuts. So it's like the skill level seems high.
Yeah, for most like I get shorter platformer NES
Mhm.
games, it's always going to be at a top level, probably pretty complicated
Yeah,
when you get
I
down
think
to it.
so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. Um, I did want to bring up some of your other hobbies. Like I know you have that drum kit behind you, so I know
Yeah.
there's some video game related things like
Yeah.
covers and whatnot.
hmm yeah, I used to do some streams where I have like an electronic kit. A friend of mine's borrowing it for now. But I would do like video game song requests where I kind of kept it like I wanted to keep it like 16 bits and lower because once you start getting above 16-bit sound, you basically have real instruments. It's like, well, I'm just playing my drums over the top of somebody else's real drums. Like, what's the point, kind of? So, but yeah, I like to do a lot of 8-bit and 16-bit stuff, and um, so as long as people made reasonable requests like that, I would give it a quick listen in my headphones and then just like kind of wing it and be like, all right, I'm gonna play the song you picked and we'll see how it goes. And sometimes it went splendidly well, and other times it was a little rough. But it's fun. It like put me on my toes, and people seem to like it. So I did some fundraiser events like that where I'd raise money for some causes in my town. So that was cool. I really enjoyed that, and it was like a pain in the ass to set it up in some ways, and also it seemed like people like were interested in watching it, but it would be hard for me to get everybody to like get into the stream and watch it sometimes. And then people would be like, "Oh, you need to do it more," and I'm like, "I don't want to do it all the time. It's exhausting. It's like
Oh
I
yeah,
just drum my ass off for 3 hours straight to really fast, complicated music. So I don't want to do that every day. But yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it. So
it's good stream content,
yeah, it is.
and it's like better variety. Not a lot of people can do that, so
Yeah, yeah. So it was a cool way to sort of add a little flavor to my channel and not just be like a one track kind of thing. But
yeah, I get that. But
mm,
yeah, it's cool to have like multiple hobbies. Like I
yeah.
can only really speedrun. I can really
Mm.
so it's hard to be good at multiple things
Yeah,
sometimes.
it's tough. Well, it's tough to like find the time to do all of them. I find myself struggling to feel like I'm giving enough time into each one. So,
Yeah,
you know,
because I assume you work full time, so
yes, yeah, I work
that's a
full
lot of
time.
time.
Yeah, 40 hours right there, and then
Wow.
I'm in a band. I skateboard with my friends. We make videos. Like I said, I'm doing like a video game music podcast now, and I'm also like yeah, there's a lot, and I wish I didn't work so I could just focus on all those things. But you got
Tell
to
me
have
about
money
it.
to do this. Yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah,
So,
it's the way it goes, unfortunately, for
mhm,
most
yeah,
people. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, that's a ton of hobbies to balance, so
Yeah, for sure.
I understand being like, okay, let's put speedrunning away for a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. That's I end up stepping away from certain ones. Skateboarding is the one where I'm just like, oh, I got injured, so I'll take a break.
Yeah, that's
But
fair.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, do you have like some stream plans if you get the time for it?
I don't have any currently. I'm pretty invested in. I just like went on some tours with my band and like did some shows, and then also finishing up. I'm trying to do this video game music podcast with my friends, and
Hmm.
still in the process of editing all those ones we've recorded. That like there's like a few I haven't finished yet, and then we're gonna do like a season's worth and release it. So I'm more putting my
Oh.
energy into that. I haven't really been thinking about when I would want to stream or do any of that stuff. So I'm not sure when I'll get back to streaming or when it will become, you know, at the top of the cycle of my hobbies again,
Hmm.
basically.
But
So
it'll probably come back at some point at least.
yeah, it always does. Like all my
Yeah.
hobbies cycle like that, and even if I dabble a little bit in the others, I'll eventually speedrunning will feel like the one I want to focus on. I'm sure. So
That's good to hear.
maybe
But
be my guess anyway.
yeah. But just nothing definitive to.
No, definitely not right now.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, I think I've exhausted my questions. I don't
Sure.
know if
Yeah.
if there's something in your speedrunning journey we didn't touch on that you'd like to.
Nothing that I can think of. Mostly people know me for Contra, and that's like the big thing to talk about, I feel like, with me. And everything else is kind of just for fun by comparison. I didn't delve into it as hard as I did with that game. So, and yeah,
Yeah, we definitely did our Contra coverage, it sounds like.
yes,
So
for sure.
yeah, if you're satisfied with what we covered, then I'm good. So
Yeah, I feel like we covered it pretty well. I don't think anything was omitted that I could think of, or yeah, seems pretty full circle from what I've done, I think. So,
yeah, well, sounds good. Well, if there's any questions in chat, feel free to ask. And as we wait for that potential stuff, I mean, if you like to self promote at all, feel free.
I mean, yeah, you can follow me on basically any social media under the same name, username, ANGRYLANKS. You know, I mean, you've already got it up there. I'm on Twitter, YouTube, Twitch.
Hmm.
I will be doing the video game music podcast, and it's going to be called Jam Pack. That's
Ooh,
JAMPAK, kind of like the game pack in the NES cartridges. I don't know when we'll actually release that, but sometime
like
this year
that.
it'll be done. Yes, exactly,
Okay,
Jam Pack.
got it.
So, obviously I'll be uploading that to, probably Spotify and YouTube and things like that, and we'll make our own special channel for it. So I'm pretty excited about it. It's like me and my two buddies, and we each pick three songs, and we have like an opener and a closer, and we just talk about what we learned about the composers and the games. It's like pretty nerdy, like in-depth stuff. So
I feel like I'd
uh,
like it. I'm super into classic
yeah,
video game music stuff.
yeah, you might enjoy it. I mean, if you've ever listened to like Legacy Music Hour at all,
No, I haven't heard of that.
it's kind of it's basically in that same vein. But they started their podcast in like 2009. They've been at it forever. So, but our goal is to like cover things they don't cover. So like we're Legacy Music Hour only does 8 and 16-bit games, but we're doing like weird Japanese home computer consoles, like everything you can do.
Hmm,
Like we're there's no time, there's no restriction. We can pick anything.
I
Pretty fun,
see.
but yeah.
Well, it sounds good.
Mhm.
Like again, that's probably something I'd be interested in listening
Yeah.
to. So
Once we get some stuff rolling, I'll definitely shoot it your way in a DM or something.
yeah. So you've mentioned you're in a band. Is that like public
Yeah,
info?
I'm in a band, a hardcore band called Velocity. It's velocity.hc on Spotify and on Instagram. And it's pretty like standard hardcore music. If people aren't familiar, hardcore music is like a section, like kind of like an offshoot of punk rock. In the earlier days, it was like a little more raw. This stuff is like the people I'm in the band with really love hardcore. It's like something I'm not super familiar with myself. I just like to play the drums, but basically it's like there's certain dances that the kids like to do, and they try to write the songs around like what parts are danceable. But it's like these like hardcore dances that are like weird kind of ska influenced dance moves or something. So it's like its own thing. It's like its own subculture that I've never been a part of until now.
Hmm.
But it's really fun, and it's like fast paced, like aggressive rock music. So if that's something you like, then you could check it out.
All right. Well, um, if that's everything, I think we can end things off here. Um,
I think, yeah.
but yeah, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's been fun.
Yeah, I always enjoy talking about speed running,
Hmm.
and it's nice to get a more like respectful appreciation for Contra.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I knew it was hard, but it's like,
Mhm.
oh my god, as I
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
saying, like
yeah.
you really need to like sit down and break down to really get an appreciation for the difficulty of that kind of
Yeah,
run. So
right.
yeah, it's nice to
Yeah,
learn a little more about that, and
yeah. I
yeah,
love talking about it, obviously. So.
eh, that's what we're here for. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, thanks everyone for watching. You can watch the episodes live on Twitch and on YouTube as VODs every Sunday. Look out for those. And yeah, that's really it. So yeah, we can just call it a day here. See you next week. Have a good one. Take care. Goodbye. Thanks for watching and all that. Have a good one.